Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session today. I am Abram Kielsmeyer-Jones. We are talking about study Bibles in accordance today. We'll spend the hour on that. We will first look at how study Bibles function in accordance specifically, and then we'll talk about how you can get the most out of study Bibles based on how accordance develops them and makes them available as modules. And we'll do this along the way, but we'll also spend some dedicated time at the end surveying a few study Bible modules. There are far more than what I'm showing here, but we'll look at a few sample modules. This handout that you should be seeing on my screen is available to you in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar control panel. You'll also get a copy of that with a recording of today's session emailed to you after it processes. If you are watching this later on a recording and want the handout, you can email me right here, abramkj@accordancebible.com, and I'd be happy to send it to you. There's a questions box that you can use to communicate with me. It's like a one-way typed chat, and so I'll either respond privately to your question, or if it seems like it's a question for everyone, I'll anonymously share it and read it out loud and answer it so that all can benefit. But I would encourage any questions or comments you've got while we focus on study Bibles in accordance. Anything you're wondering about or observations you've got, I'm glad to hear them. In fact, if you want to take a moment now just to test using that questions box, I'd love to hear where everybody is from today. We've got a wide user base, international, always at these webinars as well. So I'd be curious to hear where folks are coming from if you want to make use of that. Let's talk first about how study Bibles function in accordance. And this is a little bit arcane, but I think it's important to understand before we start opening study Bibles. In print, a study Bible is one thing. It's one product. You buy it and it's got all between the covers a Bible text. It's got study notes. It'll have introductory articles. It may have cross references in the margins. In accordance, Accordance actually produces a study Bible module that is separate from the Bible text itself. So when you buy, for example, the New Living Translation Study Bible, and you can see it here in the web browser in the store. This is the product page. I also hyperlinked to it in the handout. If you were to get this in accordance, it would just be everything but the text, basically, which maybe sounds funny because you would buy a study Bible presumably wanting to read the Bible. But the thinking behind this is, and it's all noted on the product page, the thinking behind this is that you can open up this study Bible in parallel with any translation. So let's say you like the NIV, and maybe you like the New Living Translation too, but maybe you want to read the NIV but benefit from the NLT study notes. You can do that. It's kind of like mixing and matching. And of course, you can get the New Living Translation in accordance. It's just sold separately. So just be aware of that. Look at the product page closely to kind of confirm this. So it's different from in print. If I buy the New Living Translation Study Bible in print, I get everything. It's all one thing. In accordance, it's separated out, the text from everything else. And we'll look at this in more detail as we go, but I did just want to make that note. And if anyone has any questions about that, you can let me know. This is just a very short introduction that we'll return to. But the idea here is to be helpful to you. It is to allow you to be flexible. And like I say, any given product page will mention this under the included modules. It's going to talk more about how this works and what's part of the study Bible. So let me know if you have questions about that. I didn't want to spend too much time on that. That's maybe not as exciting as the rest of what we have to do today, but let me know if that doesn't make sense or if I can clarify anything. And I will just note too, where we've got people coming from Rome, Georgia, somewhere else from Georgia, someone from Wyoming, Tampa, Florida, Miami, Florida. All right, well, we've got the ends of, not the ends of the earth, but the ends of the US represented at least, and I'm coming from Boston, so we've got a wide, and London, there we go. All right, so we do have the ends of the earth represented here. All right, so that's how study Bibles function in accordance. So just be aware of that. And again, it's all on the product page. I think if you just take the time to read it, you'll see that. But that is, especially early on in using accordance, I think that's a potential frustration people run into is, I just bought the NLT study Bible. Why is the NLT not showing up in my library? That is by design. It's not meant to, you know, rip you off or anything like that. It's a programming decision. If you want the New Living Translation Study Bible and the text, you just need to get them as separate purchases. All right, let's talk about getting the most out of study Bibles. Now, because of all of that, because of how Accordance does this, because of its programming philosophies around study Bibles, you can actually get more out of them than you could in print. And so you can, we're going to talk today about 3 different ways to use study Bibles in Accordance. I am sure these are not the only ways, but these are 3 principal ways you can use study Bibles in Accordance. One is to study a given Bible passage, which is what you would be doing in print. You open it up, we'll look at John 3:16 today, just to use a classic verse. And you would open it up in print and everything will be right there. You maybe have, you know, the text, and then a dividing line, and at the bottom you've got some study notes, maybe squeezed into some margins, you've got some cross references. And in the front of the book and at the front of the Gospel of John, you've got articles. In the back, you've got maybe a glossary, all kinds of stuff. So Accordance pulls all that out in an effort to be helpful. What that means is that when we study a given Bible passage, which is the first of these 3 that we're going to do, you can actually really kind of supercharge this process. Let me show you what I mean. I'm in John 3:16, and for the purposes of what we're doing, it doesn't really matter what translation you're in. I'm using the NRSV here to show you how you can do this mixing and matching. I do have the New Living Translation, but here's the NRSV. And so my first step has been, I've opened up a Bible text. In Accordance, this is as easy as File, New Workspace. And depending on what you've got in your settings, slow me down if you need to see any of this again, your default workspace will open up to whatever your new search tab is. So in other words, you're telling Accordance in this setting right here, whenever I open up a new search tab, open up this particular text. And I've got that set to the NRSV. So that's step 1. I've got the NRSV here. Now step 2 would be to open up a study Bible to study this passage. So I'm reading John 3:16, and of course I can scroll up and down. I'd want to look at this in context. But probably the easiest way, well, there's two ways you can do this. One is to add parallel, and you hover over this button and it says add a parallel pane to your search results. So I have searched John 3:16. When I had this initial opening thing, I just do John 3:16. I go right there. So now that's my search. Now I'm going to add a parallel to that. And I can choose a study Bible. And so I've got it right here in the recent modules. You can also access all of your study Bibles under reference tools and study Bibles. Those are the study Bibles I've got in my library. You'll probably have some that I don't. I might have some that you don't. Your list will look different, but anything you've got purchased and installed in your library will show up here. So again, add parallel, reference tools, study Bibles, and now let's say I want to look at the New Living Translation Study Bible. I just select it and there it is. It opens it right up to John 3:16. And this is similar to what's in print in the sense that I've got a Bible here, a Bible text, and a study Bible note right next to it. The truth that God loved the world is basic to Christian understanding. The note says, God's love extends beyond the limits of race and nation, even to those who oppose him. Another note, which is separated by this little bullet point, the Son came to save, not condemn men and women, I would add, and children who habitually embrace the darkness. And then you've got hyperlinks here, so you can hover over any of these verses. This particular note is actually pulling in a lot of different verses and theology. It is doing more than just expounding on this verse. And so you could hover over any of these and see them in the instant details. Now, this is something you cannot do in print. In print, you're kind of thumbing back and forth. But here you can hover. You can also click and hold. For a popover window, that's the same content as what you're getting down here. And you can read these, see if you agree with how this note is interpreting this verse, or just see where they're coming from. These verses that they mention, what do these other verses say? So that's probably the simplest way to get to use your study Bible, is just as a parallel pane, which again kind of mirrors what you would do in print. Do note that through this gear icon here, you can move it down. So if you wanted to actually look a little bit more like it might look in print, you can have it in this vertical orientation. And that's just the gear icon right here. Now I move it back up. Personally, I like it side by side. You might like it top and bottom, and Accordance lets you decide. You can also resize the panes. Maybe you want more Bible text and less of your screen taken up by notes. Again, this is probably more consistent with the study Bible, where, I don't know, 2/3 of the page, depending on the study Bible, is Bible, 1/3 of the page is study Bible, or maybe it's the other way around. So you can take some time to play with that, adjust it, get it how you want it. And then you can add more parallel panes too, by the way. So I can add another parallel pane. I can do the same thing, reference tools, study Bibles, and let's add the Wesley Study Bible. And it's going to give me another note with more cross references. I can go to add parallel again, reference tools again, study Bibles. I can add the Jewish Annotated New Testament to kind of round out my perspective. You could do this as long as there's room on your screen, and at some point it will tell you you don't have enough room on your screen to add these, but it will take a little while to get to that point. So I've got 4 study Bibles open, and I could keep doing this. I won't now. But again, you can resize this stuff. Maybe you want the Bible text bigger. You could even put all the study Bibles down at the bottom. I'm just doing that same operation where I click on the gear pane, and now I've got a kind of nice 4-column bottom section with 4 different study Bibles, and the verses up here at the top. And I can even close this library pane to maximize my space here. For that matter, you can open up another version, add parallel. It doesn't have to just be study Bibles. Maybe I want the New Living Translation open with all of this. So I just select that there. And now I've got kind of a mega study Bible. So this is hopefully a demonstration. I mean, whether you appreciate or agree with the programming philosophy or not of separating out all the study materials, one of the benefits of it is that you can do something like this really easily. I've got 2 different translations here, and I've got 4 different study Bibles here, and they're all scrolling in parallel with each other, which I haven't shown you yet, but I will now. I've run the search, John 3:16, and now as I scroll down, everything follows. My mouse or my cursor is on the NRSV pane, and I'm just scrolling on the trackpad. You could scroll with a mouse. You could use the down and up arrows, and everything is following together, which is a really nice feature. You are going to get a little bit of, not disparity, but I mean, Accordance is working as planned here, but this does get a little funny when the study Bibles maybe don't have a note on a particular verse, but on a passage. So it might kind of vary what it looks like down here, but otherwise it's all going to follow you in tandem. I will share one more thing and then I'll stop, because I don't think I've stopped for questions yet. So that's this is kind of the build your own study Bible. And by the way, you could save this file, save as, and give it a name, Mega Study Bible. And now you've got a saved workspace so that you can go to File, Open Workspace, Mega Study Bible. There it is. And you could add to this, you could adjust it. And not only does the scrolling advance it, but if I go, let's say I want to do John 1:1, hit enter, there it is in both of my Bible translations and in all of my study notes. I want to talk about the info pane briefly, but actually let me stop there. Let's just pause for a moment and see what questions folks have or comments on anything. We'll talk about the info pane in a moment, which is maybe a more efficient way to build a mega study Bible if you like, but I did want to show you kind of the manual way to do it. And please pardon my slightly noisy dog in the background. She is just fine, but let me know if the noise is a distraction. But any comments or questions on what we've done so far? We're going to talk about the info pane next, but questions on anything so far? All right, well, we'll stop again for questions, but let's talk about the info pane, because while I personally like and maybe even don't mind, you know, there's kind of some extra work involved with this. I don't mind stopping to kind of pick out like what study Bibles I want. You know, maybe one of your, and this depends on what you're doing, but maybe one of your approaches is, you know, I want to see multiple different perspectives on a passage. And so you might open up a Catholic study Bible, a Jewish study Bible, the ESV, the Wesleyan, apologetics, you're going to get different approaches. And so you could decide to do it that way. You could also, I'm going to close all of this and just go back to my default text. You could also go to Add Parallel, and instead of going to Reference Tools, Study Bibles, you could just go right to Info Pane, which is that top option. And what that's going to do, and we've got a whole, it's actually been a little while since we offered it, but we have a webinar that is just on the Info Pane. So if this looks foreign to you or overwhelming, you can go to the Help menu in your Accordance app, and go to Webinars, and that's going to take you to all of our recorded webinars, which includes one on the Info Pane. But just to say that one of the categories in the Info Pane is Study Bible. So this is kind of like if you did Add Parallel, Reference Tools, Study Bibles, except they're all here already. If you're not seeing them all, click on Show More. And now I've got not only a visual representation of my study Bibles, now that these are all clickable. So I don't have to select through that menu. If I click, for example, on NLT Study Bible, click, it opens it up as a parallel pane, which is what I did through another means in the Add Parallel button. ESV Study Bible, click. NIV Cultural Backgrounds, click, and it opens. It's in this case replacing the pane. What you can also do, instead of having parallel panes, is you can actually open these in new zones, which I kind of like to do. You can hold down Command on a Mac, or on Windows, hold down Control. So I'm holding down Command and I'm clicking, and that opened the NLT Study Bible, but now it's in its own zone, which just gives you a little bit more flexibility. It's kind of separate from this. So you can interact with this a little bit more fully, and advancing this will still advance the text here, but I don't know. This personally, I like the neatness of having like a Bible text zone and a study Bible zone. Again, all of this, it's not like you have to know every single way to access these. I think I'm just trying to demonstrate there are multiple ways to access study Bibles and multiple ones at once, and just find what seems to make the most sense for you. I'm going to continue. Command click, Command click, Command click, Command click. All right, now I've got almost, I mean, this was certainly a lot faster than what I was doing before, which is still perfectly viable, but now I've Command clicked or Control click on Windows, 5 different study Bibles, and let's say there's one more, maybe one more grabs my attention here, and I'll open this. All right. Now I may have everything I need. I can even close the info pane. I can resize the windows if I want. But now I've got different tabs here with different study Bibles. I can actually see more text this way with the way that the tabs are stacked. and I can read through multiple texts at once. If I go to John 3:16, they'll all follow because they're tied here in the scrolling, which you can remove that tie if you want, so that it doesn't follow you. But if I were studying my way through a passage or a book, I might want it to remain tied, so that when I'm in John 3:16, I can see what each of these has to say. And you'll find some pretty wide variance. This is a surprisingly short comment on John 3:16. And I don't think that has anything to do with it being a Catholic study Bible. It just has to do with maybe the scope or how they treated that particular verse. The Life Application Study Bible, this is not going to give you like historical background, but it is going to be very you focused. And it's going to talk about us and what we do, and application oriented. Apologetics is going to talk about this from an interfaith perspective. And so again, this is one specific point about the verse that far from treats everything. But when you start to look at different study Bibles, you get a fuller perspective. And here's the Cultural Background Study Bible. So I find these, I actually like using lots of study Bibles because you get different perspective. They're trying to do different things. Usually the name of the study Bible, I shouldn't say usually, often it will tell you what it's about, like Cultural Background Study Bible. Okay, I have a pretty good sense that it's going to stress the history and the cultural background, what are some of the norms there, other religions of the day. The Catholic Study Bible, I have a sense of that. Life Application, that makes sense. We have Orthodox Study Bible. Some of them are not so specifically titled, like the NLT Study Bible, the ESV Study Bible. In those cases, they tend to be more all-in-one study Bible. So they try to do a little bit of everything, which if you've ever seen either the NLT or ESV or NIV Study Bible in print, maybe you've got them. They're huge. They're enormous. Wonderfully large Bibles, because they really are trying to do a little bit of everything. So that's just something to keep in mind as you've got your info pane open and as you're deciding on which Bibles, which study Bibles you want to access. And again, as I say, this is not a lot of comment. None of these Bibles that I've shown you, maybe with the ESV being the exception, none of them has a ton of comment on 3:16. Your commentaries will have much more. So in some ways, the study Bibles are a springboard, but personally, I appreciate the study Bibles as a starting point where maybe I just want to get the lay of the land. What kinds of questions are the commentators treating? What questions do I want to see more of? What do I want to think about myself? And even using the study Bibles can help me inform myself when I go to my commentaries. So for example, this idea of a literal biological offspring and God having a son. So whether you think about this from an interfaith perspective or not, the question arises, what exactly is the nature of the relationship between God and Jesus? So which obviously is a huge question that lots of people have spent lots of time thinking about. I might take that particular question now to my commentaries. This verse is saying so much. It's not just about the relationship between Father, God, and Jesus, but that might be one particular angle, having seen this note, that I want to look at more in my commentaries now. So personally, I love study Bibles. I love the brevity of them. They will leave things to be desired. Again, there's so much that this doesn't say. Same here in the Life Application Study Bible. Like I say, the ESV or the NLT, they're going to be a little bit more thorough, but you'll still be left with questions. It will help you frame them though, and it will start to answer some questions, like it's going to say what not perish means. So the info pane I find useful to not just kind of pick my own workspace or arrangement, which I may do still, but the info pane allows you to just get at a bunch of different study Bibles all at once. You don't even have to open them with the info pane. If I make this instant details bigger, you'll see here that you can just hover over these cover images. And as I do that, I'm getting in the instant details, I'm getting the content of that study Bible. And this is, it's obviously quicker than flipping through a bunch of different books. It's also quicker than opening them. You can just scan them this way, and maybe you see something like, oh, wow, this one has a word study on the Greek word love. That looks good. So then Command click or Control click and open it in a new tab and read through it that way. I will stop there. For some of you, this will all be familiar. For others, it may not. But I want to stop and check in and see what questions folks have. This is all kind of under the heading or the approach of studying a particular Bible passage. And I was showing two ways to do that. One is the kind of from the ground up, add parallel, build your own workspace. The other was using the info pane. And we just did a sample passage, but we talked a little bit about scrolling and how it can kind of follow each other. But yeah, what questions does this bring up for you, or what comments do you have before we talk about two more ways to get the most out of study Bibles in accordance? All right, well, seeing none in the questions box, of course, you can put questions in at any time, and we'll probably have some time at the end too, more extended time for questions. So back to this whole programming philosophy with accordance, I think another reason why the study Bible is its own separate thing apart from the text, not only so that you can kind of mix and match like we did, but you can also open up the study Bible as its own module in a zone or in a workspace. So let me show you this. I'm going to go to Window. I'm going to go to Library, and again, it is likely the case that you are using your study Bible to elucidate a given passage. I mean, just sort of by definition, that's what study Bibles tend to be about. And so it may be that, more often than not, maybe even all the time, you've got a Bible text and a study Bible open side by side. However, you can also open up just the study notes themselves. And so let's go to the New Living Translation. You can see here even how Accordance separates this into three separate modules. So if I get the NLT Study Bible in Accordance, if I purchase it or download it, maybe you already have it, I get the Study Bible, I get the dictionary that would be, I guess, in the back in print, and I get the cross references, which would be in the margin. They're all separate modules. Again, you can mix and match. We didn't even talk about the cross references, but just to show you what that looks like briefly. That's part of the NLT Study Bible. This would be like a real, probably really skinny column in print. So that's there. But to open it on its own, type in the name of the module, and I'm going to open this. And what we're seeing here is exactly what we saw before. It's just the study notes without a Bible text open. And there could be reasons you want to do that, mostly searching, which we'll talk about in a minute. But even with this, which is kind of great, Accordance hyperlinks all of the references. So even if I just had the study Bible notes open, I can hover over a verse and I get the verse in my instant details with whatever version I can change it in the settings. I can still see the verses that way. But this way I've got the whole study Bible. I can also open up the contents here. And in this way, you can still very much be in parallel with the Bible text, but in this way, you're looking at it as like its own book. And so here are the contents. And the contents here, basically you get an outline of the book. So here's John, and I can expand and collapse this triangle to get different levels of detail. But you can see how the study Bible is outlined here. As expected, there's some introductory material, setting, summary, outline. I really appreciate this 4-point outline. It's really a 2-point outline with a prologue and an epilogue. Now, obviously, you can outline it much more in much more detail than that. And in fact, under the notes section, it's going to do exactly that. See here how it took that same outline and now that's in your contents. but it also subdivides into different headings. So you would see all of this when you have it open in parallel with a Bible text, but I think there's also value in opening up the study Bible by itself, and it's kind of neat to see everything just sort of in one place as if it's its own book, to see how it's structured, and you really get a sense here of the outline, how the study Bible, how the editors thought of the section headings and groupings and things like that. And you can get into the introductory articles this way. And not only that, you're going to find as you scroll up, okay, we're talking about John, but not only John, we're going to have some comment presumably about the Gospels in general. And how does this all fit together? And sure enough, look at this. It's a really nice chart here. Trying to harmonize the Gospels, put them all together. If the Gospels are all telling the same general story about Jesus, but with their own different purposes and means, how does it all work together? Well, this chart is great. It will show you, again, everything is hyperlinked here. And you could just get lost in a chart like this in a good way. I mean, there's a lot here. And so the study Bibles as their own kind of standalone module, I think there's a lot of value, especially if you have just downloaded something for the first time, just to get the lay of the land. This will not show up, I don't think, in your parallel. I mean, this is not parallel to a given Bible verse, so it would not show up if you had the Bible text open and the parallel study Bible. So opening it as its own separate module, which is this second point here, will allow you to get even more out of the study Bible. And then we've been doing this browsing here, introductory articles, book intros, contents, kind of gone over this. You can also get to the end matter this way. I always like to see what's in the end and what's at the beginning. There are many of us who, as kids or even now as adults, got a Bible and right away went to the maps section because that was what interested us. Well, you can do that here too. And you've got little thumbnails and then click them open. You can even open these in a new, you can go full screen there. You can open them in a new zone if you want. You can interact with these in various ways. You can copy them into presentations. So you can get to the end here. There's a reading plan. Now, in this particular module, what is not at the end of this module is the dictionary, because Accordance separated it out. And that's probably so that it can show up in your dictionaries when you search all of your dictionaries all at once. So again, it's just kind of adding to the flexibility. So you've got that there as well. The last thing I will say about this kind of standalone approach, and if I'm going too fast and you want to hear anything again, please ask a question or make a comment, and I'd be happy to slow down or go over something else. This search feature here, you can really utilize this when it's open as a standalone. Again, presumably you are coming to a study Bible from a passage, but you may not be. You may be coming to it from an idea. Maybe you've used the NLT Study Bible for enough passages that you think, I really like this Bible or this study Bible. I wonder what it says about fill in the blank. And for that, you can search a number of ways. I'm just going to go to all English. And I saw the word incarnation in one of the other study Bibles. Let's see how that gets talked about here. Well, we've only got 9 hits. That's actually surprising to me. And here they are. And so I ran the search, 9 hits. If I click on this, it will show me where it is. But I've also got right here in the go-to, it's kind of like another search button down here, or search box, Exodus 23:33. I can navigate down by hit. Here's something in Judges about the incarnation of Jesus. That would be interesting to see because I might not have made that connection myself. Here's something else, and Isaiah talks about the incarnation, and certainly in the New Testament, we've got a couple references here. That may not be the topic you want to search. You may want to just look at the word Jesus. You're going to get a lot under that, 4,919, but you can search anything, really anything. All English is a good default search. You can also search by captions, which will be, I think that's just going to be your maps. Yeah, or no, not just your maps, your timelines too. So any figure, this is a good search for any figure. I just did asterisk and a question mark and turned it to captions. So anything, it's basically, this is your way of telling Accordance to show all captions. So anything that has a caption, which is going to be a chronology or a timeline. See, I'm doing, there's a very faint, hard to see, but there's a white arrow here. And I can just navigate through that. Maybe I want to see all the charts and all the maps, not just at the back, but maybe I want to see what else is there throughout the text. So that's a good search to use. Can search some other search fields as well. I won't go through all these, but it is worth experimenting with and just seeing how do I get the most out of the study Bible by searching what it is I'm interested in. You know, like you may be working your way through the book of Exodus, and you'll get lots of great stuff on that. In Exodus itself, it's also, I'm sure, the case that the word Exodus will appear elsewhere. So in the introduction, maybe you want to research that. Maybe you want to skip ahead to where it occurs in the New Testament. And so you can do it that way as well. Lots of different searches you could run. Let curiosity be your guide, I would say, and well, and also the purpose that you're setting out to do a study for, that's going to dictate that. But this is just a different way to access the same module. This is the same module we had open in parallel to a given passage, but when we open it up on its own as a standalone module and look at both the search fields and the outline here, we really see how much is in here, which again, in print, you're just flipping through this and you can do that very quickly. In Accordance, you can still browse through it, but you can also keyword search it in a way that's going to be much quicker than using the index would be. So that's a second way I would think about using study Bibles in Accordance. The first way would be to study a given Bible passage and have your study Bible open in parallel. The second way would be a study Bible as its own module in a zone. And we'll stop for questions before we do this last one, which is going to be using the research feature to search all study Bibles at once. If the kind of search everything feature for looking at a Bible passage was info pane, the search everything feature for any other kind of search is research. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I saw a question come in earlier. Great, yeah, this came in a little while ago, but let me put this in the chat to share with others. Thanks for this comment. Somebody says the goal/purpose of a study Bible are often found in the study Bible's preface. Yeah, and thankfully, you can even, I mean, if you've got a study Bible, that would be a great first step to do. If you're trying to decide about a study Bible, often that will be in the product page. There will be some comment on that in the product description, and if not, you could always search it on Google Books or something like that. But that's a great step to understand what kind of study Bible is this. So this, I don't know that this is in the preface of the book per se. It's at least the product description, but this gives you a good sense. And then, yeah, the preface will actually go in much more detail. The preface of a good study Bible will also probably say something about the approach of the commentators. Like they'll acknowledge maybe their historical background, their cultural background, their theological background. Just kind of by way of saying, here's our social location, we're going to own that and share that with you, and here's how we're approaching it. So you'll get lots of good information like that in the preface. Thanks for mentioning that. Any other comments or questions, especially about opening study Bibles on their own? That again is a little unique in the sense that that's not how you couldn't really use a print study Bible that way. I mean, you can use the index and you can flip through and look for whatever you want to, but having it separated out like that, there's much more you can do in Accordance with it as its own module. All right, let's continue on. Let's talk about the research feature. This is going to allow you to search all of your study Bibles all at once. So that's, as you build your library, You know, we searched incarnation in the NLT Study Bible, and we saw it 9 times. You know, the nice thing about a search result that only comes up 9 times is you can actually have time to read it. It's not like 4,000 hits, but you may want to go into your other study Bibles too. If you're studying the incarnation and you're wondering what do my study Bibles say about it, you can actually run that search all at once. So let's go to that. And yeah, let me take this question. Can you add your own notes to a study Bible? And put that question in the chat so people can see what I'm responding to. So let's get a study Bible open. We'll go to NLT Study Bible again. I'm going to go to a reference, John 3:16. And there should be right to the right a little plus button. This is very small, but I've got a blue circle over my cursor. That's a third-party app, by the way. If I hit that button, I can add notes to the study Bible in a particular user notes file. So the shorter answer to your question is yes. The longer answer is how you do it is you find that plus button, and you can use an existing file or create a new user notes file. I would just say, as far as like, I mean, that can be a pretty involved process. So as far as getting more information about that, I don't remember when it was, but I believe fairly recently there's been a webinar on user notes. And if not, if you go to the help menu, Accordance Help, and I would just even search user notes. And here we go, working with user notes. You might start there. And that's going to walk you through how to do it. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because it's not, you know, you can have one user notes file or you can have multiple. And this will kind of walk you through how and why to do that. It's been a very long time since I've done one. I used to do a user notes webinar. But yes, that's kind of where you would want to go next. But short answer is yes, you can. And that's a great idea. Then you've essentially got your own study notes on the study notes. You can even skip the middleman, so to speak, or the middle person. You can just do user notes on the Bible text itself and thereby create your own sort of study Bible that would then be able to be opened in parallel with all of your Bible texts. And I know a number of users have done that. I've got some notes that I sort of kept over the years. But yeah, thanks for that question. Excellent question. I'm glad that you asked it. All right, the research feature. I'm going to close everything and I'm going to go to File, New Tab, and Research. I'm in Accordance 13. I think this got moved up in Accordance 14, so it may be somewhere different. Or you can open up, let's see here, show your toolbar. You can also run a research search right from your toolbar. But let's do a new research search. And it looks like this, just a beautifully blank screen so far. And I'm going to have some contents here in the sidebar. There's nothing yet because I haven't run a search. There is the first question is, what do you want to search? Or where do you want to search? The second question is, what is your search term, which goes in the white space here. And then I often think of this as like question 2.5. Are you searching English, Greek, Hebrew, Syriac, and so on and so forth? So the first question is, where do we want to search what we're about to search? Well, this is a Study Bibles webinar, so we're going to go to our Study Bibles. And there is a pre-made category for that right here. All right, so that's question number one. Question number two is, what do you want to search? Well, let's go back to incarnation. I'm just curious. We saw that word in the Catholic Study Bible. Just thinking theologically, I would imagine that word will come up more in the Catholic Study Bible. Now, the 2.5, question 2.5 is, what kind of search is this? Well, it's just an English word. So now I'm going to hit enter. And it did the search like instantaneously. And now I've got some results here in the left sidebar. Now, this can be a lot to wade through, which is a good thing if you're trying to get information. It's got some of these study Bibles mentioned a few times, and that's because what it's doing is it's running the search through different search fields. So what we were using before was all English. So that would be if I search the ESV Study Bible, and I'm going to open this, for incarnation, for all English instances of the word incarnation. So anywhere it occurs. But this first one was just searching by title, and that may be useful too, where I want to see if incarnation is a title somewhere in the study Bible. That probably means it's going to be a nice long article about it, which is exactly the case right here. So Accordance will make those distinctions. We talk about this if you go to help webinars. There's a research webinar that we've done, and we talk about, you can change how this is all sorted, but this is what's happening here, is that it's running a search for the word in English by title, by all English, and it's returning the results here. So you've got a lot more to work with already in the ESV, 56 results. NIV Student Bible just gave us 2 results, one of which was a little dictionary definition, God taking human flesh, birth of Jesus, with some hyperlinked passages and some hyperlinked sidebars, which is kind of neat. So it takes you right there. Jewish Study Bible, 1 time. Life Application Study Bible, 14 times. And pick your search term here. I'm just using this as an example. But again, those are 2.5 decisions you make. Number 1, where am I searching this thing? And you can search this now in your dictionaries if you want. We're just doing study Bibles. Number 2, what am I searching? Incarnation. And then 2.5, is it, am I searching English, Greek, Hebrew, Syriac versus image? You can choose that as well. But this is, you can see here, there's a lot of results, and this little number here will tell you, in fact, this may not surprise us theologically, that the Orthodox Study Bible, where the incarnation, of course, it's a major theological theme in every Christian tradition, but it will probably be mentioned more in an Orthodox work on theology for whatever historical theological reasons that is. So you can even just look at the numbers here and go to those and say, all right, well, this has 86 times, so let's check that out. That's the research search. And what this is doing is searching all of your study Bibles all at once. We talked about the info pane, which I still think is probably the best way to do this on a verse-by-verse basis. But you can also use the research search for this. So if I wanted to say, and this is just another way to do a very similar thing, if I wanted to say, I wonder what all of my study Bibles have to say about John 3:16, you can get at that from your research search. You're not searching a word now, you're searching a verse. That's decision 2.5. Decision 1 was study Bibles. Decision 2 was what verse? Now, when I do John 3:16, just like that, it's going to give me John 3:16, including any references that it would be part of, like any ranges. So here's this outline. Remember, we looked at this 4-point outline. John 3:16 is in that, so it shows up. Well, that's fine, but if my goal is to see the comment on that particular verse, if you put the equal sign in front of it for accordance, it will show you only John 3:16, not when it's part of a range. And now I can just very quickly go through whatever study Bibles come up here, which is great. Now I'm looking at everything. And maybe you like this view better than the info pane. Again, you don't have to know all of these ways to do things. I'm just trying to establish how many ways you can use study Bibles. Hopefully, at least a couple of them will be helpful to you. I think this is another helpful way to access your study Bibles. It's using the research search. Keying this to verses. I'll stop there, and again, just to say that both with the info pane and the research search, there's so much more to them. Everything's in the written help files. Maybe you don't like a video as much, maybe you want written documentation, we've got that too. But the webinars, including today's, they all get recorded and posted there, so you can see more there as well. I see a question I want to respond to, which I will before we move on to this last section, which we've kind of been doing a little bit all along the way, but we'll talk more about particular study Bibles. In fact, let's do this. As I respond to any questions or comments you've got now, if there are particular study Bibles you would like to hear about, I mean, I can't, say I've read every single one, obviously, or even know everyone, but I will do my best. I've used a lot of them. So I've just listed 3 here that I have gotten a lot of benefit from. But if you want to also put in the chat a particular study Bible you're interested in looking at, if I've got it in my library, I'd be happy to demo it. Otherwise, we can use these 3. Okay, great. Yep. So there was a question and somebody answered it themselves, which is great. But it was just the question of how do you change how it's sorted here? And that is in this gear icon here. If you want to spend some time to think about the logic of that, that's in that info, or I'm sorry, it's in the research webinar. But yeah, all of this really is pretty customizable. Oh, here's a great question. I'll have to give a short answer for this one, but I am going to put it in the chat because I think this tends to be the kind of question that Accordance users are interested in. What type of word processor do you use when you take notes in Accordance, Word, etc.? Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for a good app, which actually I think now that I say that makes it remarkable that these however many years later I'm still in Accordance so much. But for word processing, I've jumped around from TextEdit to Word to Pages to MindNode for mind mapping, which isn't word processing per se, to different outliners. I use probably most recently I've been using Scrivener, which I'll just put that name in the chat. That is just sort of kind of a cross between a word processor and a database. It's great. And I've used all the user tools in Accordance, user notes, user tools. Yeah, so that's a great question. I think for me, it comes down to it's fun to play with different apps. At some point, I need to just have a good, reliable system that works for me. And so at some point, I do need to choose something and use it. So I'm often fighting that tension. But yeah, I'd be curious what others use. Folks on the Accordance forums are often talking about questions like that, which is a great one. Will the equal sign work for a range of verses also, somebody asks. Yeah, it should. Let me see. Maybe not. Well, okay, yes. I mean, yes and no. So what this does actually, when I run this search, it's searching for John 3:16 and 17. I wonder if I could get it to find, like, if you're looking for a particular, I don't even know how you would do that. Like maybe I want to see anywhere where they're mentioned together. I don't know if you can do that. No, because that search isn't showing up there. So someone can correct me or add to that if they know more, but I think the answer is you can do equals for a range, but what it will do is just search the verses in that range. It won't give you the range as such. Does that make sense? In other words, if you're looking for a reference that says John 3:16 to 17, I'm not sure there's a way to search that in particular, but I would welcome anyone who knows otherwise. All right, here's another question. Is there a way, let me put this in the chat, to connect the Jewish New Testament with the Old Testament Jewish Study Bible so I do not have to open or search each one individually? I think so. It's been honestly a long time since I've done this, but there is, let me just pull up the help article. There is a way to combine tools in Accordance, and I know you can do this with commentaries and texts. I've never done it with study Bibles. I'm going to take just a minute to see what I can give you on this, and then I might have to leave you with this help file. But there is a way to combine resources in Accordance to do exactly what you're talking about, because maybe there's something where it just has the Old Testament and the New Testament. Yeah, here's some examples. So you can do it with texts, you can do it with commentaries. I don't know I don't know that it can be done with the study Bible, but I don't know that it can't. So I would say go to your help files and search combined tools and maybe just poke around and see what you can find. It will tell you how you would do that if it works for study Bibles. And then just try it and see if it works. If anyone has done that, I would love to hear about it. I have not tried that in particular. Yeah, someone says combined resources work for all tools or texts, as long as they don't overlap. Yeah, so I think this ought to work. And if it doesn't, you know, you could always email support, but you could also email me because I'd be curious what you find. And I'd be happy to help when I've got a little more time to do that. I have combined resources in the past. I just haven't done it for a while, but it should work for study Bibles. But that's interestingly, it's not listed as an example here. So what I'm not sure about, and you'll find this out as you play with it, what I'm not sure about is, does Accordance have to actually code this into the modules for it to work? And if that's the case, and they haven't coded it into those 2 Jewish study Bibles, then it won't work. But again, I'll be really curious to see how it goes. That's a great question, and that would make for a great study Bible. Here's a question: how do you show the hit result in the list? And I think that's asking about the research search again. And I may just have to be brief in my response. So what this is doing, I mean, you can do show excerpts to just show a little bit, and if that's what you're seeing, just go here to show full text, and that will show you the full hit result, which of course you can pop open in its own zone. But I think that may be the setting that you're looking for, and let me know if that does not answer your question, and I'd be happy to circle back. Here's another good question. Can I open 2 copies of the same study Bible? I don't see why not. I mean, yes, you can. I can give you a clearer answer than that. So here they are, and you can even put them side by side, and then just kind of decide what you want to do with it. I mean, you could even, I mean, kind of a fun, and I know we're running out of time here, but kind of a fun workspace would be NRSV, NLT Study Bible in parallel, and the NLT Study Bible as its own separate zone. Why not do everything? So now you've got it scrolling in tandem here. You can make sure this one is not tied to your zone, so that if you want it to follow you through the text, I'm scrolling here, NLT Study Bible is following me. This one isn't, which is maybe what I want, because maybe I want to use this to search stuff. So this is a great, and I'm actually very glad you asked that question, because I don't think to mention that in these webinars, but this is really the best of both worlds. You know, why choose? You've got it as a study Bible like it would be in print, and as a separate book. It's all here. You're much more likely to access all of the riches of a given study Bible. Great. I'm going to put this comment in the chat. There is a webinar by Ryan that addresses combined resources. Excellent. One more question, I'll take this. Can you also do that on a floating pane to put on a second monitor? You should be able to, yeah. Any of these tabs, you can detach them. And now I've got a workspace here and a workspace here. And I think, I don't use an external monitor, but you just like scroll it over, right? Or there's a setting somewhere. So the way to separate them out is detach tab, or just keep opening new workspaces, drag them and drop them. I know we've got a lot of users, actually, I was surprised to learn this at one point, that use external monitors. And I mean, you really can get a lot out of it there. All right, somebody asked about the ESV Archaeology Study Bible, and let me just take 1 minute to show that before we wrap up. By way of example, we've used the NLT a lot and kind of briefly glanced at these other ones. But you know, when I get a study Bible, I'm looking at a few things. First of all, what modules are there? And in this case, it's just the one. With the NLT, we had the dictionary, we had the cross references, we had the study Bible. This is just all in one. So I would open that. I would look through the contents here. You're going to find, of course, the approach in the preface, but even mercifully, an article called "What is Archaeology?" I bet you could all define it in a sentence or two, but it gives us the background, what it's about, what it's trying to do, and it really sets the stage for this. particular approach before it dives into it. So before you even use the study Bible, you understand what it's about. There's this nice article, 10 most significant discoveries. So that these may come up while you're looking at particular verses. But it's also got some good articles here. And then, as expected, as you go through different passages, I'm just trying to think of a relevant example. I'll just pick one at random. But here's this for the staff. When they're kind of doing the competing plagues and Moses and Aaron versus the Egyptian magicians, you'll get some historical background here. And not only that, but like, what is some archaeological evidence for this stuff? So this is a very specific focus. And so you'll see here, like whole sections will not be addressed, but that's because there may not be something archaeologically significant that they comment on. So this is a specific kind of study Bible. This would not be like the life application study Bible that you would read more devotionally. It would be more for archaeology, which maybe itself is devotional for you. I don't mean to suggest those are mutually exclusive, but that's got a particular approach. That was a 2-minute overview. Feel free to ask a follow-up question on that. But I am mindful of the time, and so want to wrap up here. This recording, like I said, is going to be sent to you after a while once it processes with a link to the handout. If you're watching on the recording later, you can email me at abramkj@accordancebible.com for the handout. I'm actually going to stop the recording and stay on for about 30 more seconds for those of you here live.